Welcome to Reality with Kiki. I'm your host, Kiki, and on this channel, we discuss reality TV, celebrity gossip, and viral topics. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like our content. You can also follow us on our Facebook page. A link will be in the description box below, and we also have it linked in our bio. All right, so Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So we start this episode off um in a few of the different ladies' homes. They're like short clips of like what they got going on, what they're doing. So the first main thing that happens is Lisa and her family go to this event space because they are putting on a charity event, and it's to help children who are in foster care to get permanently adopted and different things like that. She talked about how her husband was adopted. The story was like a little interesting. The main thing that caught my attention was Lisa's jacket. I'm trying to figure out where that jacket is from because that thing was fire. So then we move on to Mary, who sets up a lunch or dinner date with a couple of the ladies. Whitney is there, Heather is there. And they're at this restaurant, and the chef is trying to prepare a salmon ceviche. And Mary's like, is the salmon all the way cooked? And it's like, Mary, it's ceviche. Like, what do you think? And then she's like, oh, no, no. So in her confessional, she goes into how she doesn't do raw fish because in her mind, the fish will come back alive and build a little family and be moving around in her stomach. Now, I'm trying to understand how a fish that's cut up will form back together and come back alive, Mary. Come on now. Some of the things that go through your head are just not okay. Okay, so Heather and Whitney are, talking to Mary, and they're just kind of like, oh, have you talked to Lisa since the tubing event? And she's just like, Lisa is Lisa. So I'm going to take that as a no. And she starts crying because she's talking about how what they went through triggered her. So, like, questioning what she says is triggering to her because, in her mind, everything that she says is fact. And it's triggering because her mom questioned what she's had to say, and she went into how like she hasn't spoken to her mom in 25 years because of the whole situation with her marrying Robert Sr. How her mom thought that because of the grandmother dying, her mother thought that she should be next in line to get the church. And Mary's just like, that wasn't the will of God. And I'm like, was it the will of God for you to be marrying your step grandpa? I don't know. I just feel like you guys are making things up. But what have you, that really upset her mother, and she has not spoken to her since. And I think it's hurtful for her, even with like Whitney saying, do you think that you can resolve it? She's like, no. And just it's kind of just like I've moved past it, but it's just like, but obviously you're hurt behind it because for one, it's your mom, right? Like, who wants to just be separated or disowned by their mother? Nobody. So Heather, just goes into like, that's something You've been able to navigate this far, so you've done a great job, blah, blah, blah. So then Heather started to go into how, like, if it seems like your relationship or your friendship with Lisa is contingent upon you being team Lisa. And I'm like, exactly. I feel like all her friendships are like that. Like, if you're not on my side, then we are not friends and I'm going to cut you off. That's why with Angie, she's so quick to cut her off. Somebody you know for over 20 years, you so quick to cut her off. And that's why when she was going through everything she was going through when they were tubing, she kept saying, "Oh, Meredith and nobody say anything. Nobody has my back." So when she was arguing with Mary, nobody had my back. When things were going on the rooftop, nobody has my back with her and Angie and they're back and forth. And it's just like, why does anybody need to have your back? I think that the other people sitting there are minding their business and not butting in because both of those situations had nothing to do with them. So why would they need to come in and defend you? Especially if you said you didn't do anything, you weren't wrong. So anyway, Mary is just like, no, I don't think Lisa is like that. She doesn't work like that. And it's just like, but she just showed you. Like Heather's like, she literally just showed you. You just went through that. So how are you not able to see it? She's like, oh, well, I move past things. And it's like, okay, Mary, whatever you say. So Lisa invites Jen to the photo shoot that her sons are having for their product launch. And after they do some photos, Lisa and Jen sit down. So Lisa's like, oh, what's going on with you and Heather? I know you guys' relationship is a bit turbulent. Like, what's going on? Are you guys good? But then she randomly brings up the situation with Jen and her ex-employee designer person. So she's like, I know there's been a lot going on with that. And he put out the audio of you, yelling and all of that stuff. And Jen is like, yeah, I haven't been able to speak on it, because he's lied on me. And I'm just here to say that, like, listening to the audio, what did he lie about, Jen? You were going off. And he felt like it was too much and borderline abusive. Like, what about that is a lie? So she goes on to say, Whitney sent him a gift and I just feel like that wasn't right and she shouldn't be doing things like that. And it's just like, here we go again, Lisa. You are just a snake. You're a snake. Because you're mad about what happened at the tubing event, but you know, let's put that aside from that. You're still trying to throw rocks and hide your hands. Because what was the purpose of bringing that up? Especially if you felt like this was something that Jen doesn't talk about and she's really hurt about it. What would be the purpose? Because you want Jen to go and attack Whitney because you feeling some type of way about her defending Angie. Let's really get into it. So Whitney goes out with her brother and she pretty much was just discussing how she hasn't spoken to their dad in a while. And her brother is like, well, I speak to him weekly. And she is feeling hurt behind it because he is, I don't know if he's actively on drugs, but he is an addict. And she felt like she brought them all back together. So her and her siblings and her dad. And she's just like, I've given him so much unconditional love and I don't feel like it's been returned. And he pretty much cut me off because one time she let him, I guess, come and watch the kids. She ordered food for them. Her and her husband, they went out and she got a call saying that he was going off on the delivery driver. And, it scared her kids. And she was just like, we had to go home. And she knows that, like, he was high, but he was trying so hard to hide it from her. And, from then, like, her and her husband told him, like, you gotta go. And I guess he was upset and just was like, he's not gonna be talking to Whitney again. So she was hurt behind that. So then we move on, and Meredith and Heather go out together, and their daughters are with them. They're talking about Ashley going to college and all these different things. And then Meredith is trying to plan a trip. So originally, Meredith got the house for her family. They were going to take the vacation, but since her husband is going off, they can no longer do that, and she wants to invite the ladies. So Heather is like, "Oh, well, what do you think about inviting Jen? Because Meredith is just like, I'm going to invite the usual suspects." So she's like, "What about Jen? How's your relationship?" And she's just like, we're still working on things." And she's like, "Well, she can still come though." And then Heather is like, "Well, what if everybody comes and we have a good time?" And I'm like, "Now, what's the likelihood of that? Everybody got an issue. Somebody got an issue with at least one other person in this group. Every time y'all all sit down and talk, whether it's in pairs or in groups, it's always an issue." So y'all gonna take this trip and it's gonna be dramified. We already know. So I guess despite their issues, Jen and Heather are hanging out because Jen wants to help Heather get back out there in the dating scene. So she brings her some little sex toy gifts, I don't know. And they're kind of having fun. And so Heather invites Jen to Meredith's getaway, and Jen is like, "I thought we were good. Why isn't Meredith inviting me since this is her trip?" So I'm like, that was a good catch. But Jen is like, "Okay, I'm going to be there. Like, it's fine." And then she goes into how Lisa invited her to the photo shoot and how Lisa told her about Whitney sending the ex-employee gifts or whatever, and you know all of that nature. So Heather is like, "Okay, what was the purpose of her telling you that?" Like, she's like, "First of all, I don't think that Whitney sends out things for free. So there's the possibility that he purchased them and then he posted it like, 'Oh, thank you,' to be shady or to start some drama." And I was like, exactly. Because Heather is like, what would be the purpose of her telling you that? She's trying to tell you that Whitney is being a bad friend or whatever. And she's just trying to get to the, like, what was the purpose? And I'm just like, exactly. Like, I'm glad that Heather pointed that out to Jen, because it was like, there was no reason for her to do that. And it's just like, you just were crying about, oh, you want people to think the best of you. But like, everything that you do is calculated. And it's like, Lisa is such a snake. She's such a snake. Like, why are you doing the things that you do? Then you cry and feel like you don't have any friends. Like, do you not see what you're doing? And here we go again. Like I said, throwing rocks, hiding your hands, because Heather's like, "Okay, well, I just got off the phone with Whitney, and Whitney was telling me how Lisa invited her and Meredith to this small private event. So, Jen, y'all supposed to be friends. Why wouldn't she invite you?" That's suspicious. And then Jen is like thinking it through, and she's like, "Exactly. If you're concerned about Whitney doing something to me, why would you invite her to this event? On top of, you didn't invite the rest of the ladies. You specifically chose two ladies. But I already know how Lisa is going to set this up, right? That's why when Meredith showed up to the event, she's like, "Oh, yeah, so the boys helped me put the list together and you were on the list." So she's going to try to put this on her kids. But no, bitch, it's you. Okay, so we're at the event. It's the combination event for Lisa's kids with their product launch, and then they're doing something for charity for children who are in the foster care system. So Meredith is the only other person that showed up out of the two that were invited from the group. And her Meredith and Lisa are having a conversation, and one of Lisa's guests is, trying to tell her bye, give her a hug goodbye. And she introduces him to Meredith, like, oh, this is one of my good friends. Like, this is our connection to Mary. She used to go, he used to go to her church, and she tells the guest, Cameron, oh, Meredith and Mary are really good friends, like really, really good friends. So it's like, okay. So for me, again, I think that everything Lisa does is calculated. So my antennas are up at this point. Because why did you feel the need to emphasize that? But okay. So Lisa gets pulled away because, again, this is her event, or her event with her kids. And Meredith starts talking to Cameron. It's just like, yeah, um, so how do you know Mary again, and all of these things. It's like, oh, I went to her I used to go to her church and all of these things, but just be careful. Thankfully I don't go there anymore. Her and her husband have done a lot of horrible things. So Meredith is like, okay, so what happened? What did you do? And he's just like, yeah, like, I'm not really gonna get into it, but I'm just gonna let you know, like, that's her story to tell. That's Mary's story to tell. So if that's Mary's story to tell, why did you bring it up in the first place? Okay. So he's like, I gotta get out of here. So he leaves. So after he leaves, Lisa comes back over, and Meredith is just like, that conversation was a bit cryptic, and it has me feeling some type of way, like, what's really going on. So Lisa's like, oh yeah, he used to be a preacher at her church, and I don't really feel comfortable talking about this right now, but you know things didn't end well. So she's like, okay, but he kept telling me to be careful. Like, why is he doing that? And I'm just like, there is no way that you're not going to tell me that, like, Lisa set that up to get into Meredith's ear about Mary. Right? So, like, one thing was, two things that happened on that trip with Lisa, the tubing trip. She got into it with Mary, and she got into it with Angie, and then Whitney backs up Angie. Whenever somebody's not on Lisa's side, she is on a mission to take you down or to get you back, whatever have you. So she got Whitney back, or thinks that it's in the works, because she told Jen about Whitney giving the gift to that ex-employee that exposed Jen. So now she's trying to expose Mary by bringing this guy around to the event, introducing him to Meredith. Um, and to me, it wasn't a coincidence, because you said that this was going to be a small, intimate event, and at some point they were going to cross paths, and you were going to introduce them, and you were going to introduce him as your connection to Mary. So it's just like, I'm tired of Lisa. Okay, somebody needs to expose you, because I'm tired. But that's pretty much how this episode ends, and I'm sure we will get more into those details either when they go on this trip or throughout the rest of the season, so that we can hear this story about what Mary and her husband did. You guys let me know down in the comments what you thought about this episode, and I will speak to you next time.